Welcome to Typebook. We are Chris and Rose, INTJ and INFJ, and we are cataloging a variety of people based on their Jungian psychological types and their MBTI four-letter abbreviations. Please like our videos and subscribe to our channel to support the work we are doing. Today, we are taking a look at Fred Rogers, otherwise known to millions as Mr. Rogers.
Okay. 3, 2, 1, go.
It's about the things that matter to me. Yeah. It's about the white spaces between the paragraphs, which I think are more important than any of the text, because it allows you to think about what's just been said. I had a professor one time, I think he's on page 20 or 22. His name was Dr. William Orr.
Right.
And he said, "You know, Fred, there's one thing that evil cannot stand, and that is forgiveness." And you notice the rest of the page is blank.
Yes.
It needs a lot of time to think about that.
I can read this. Have you had people who have touched you, not moved you in order to manipulate you, but touched you inside to inside? Is that it?
That's the one.
Take a minute to think of at least one person who's helped you to become who you are inside today, someone who is interested in you for who you really are, someone you feel really accepted the essence of your being. Just 1 minute to think of those who have made a real difference in your life. Who's made a difference in your life?
Oh, a lot of people. But a lot of people who have allowed me to have some silence. And I don't think we give that gift very much anymore. I'm very concerned that our society is much more interested in information than wonder, in noise rather than silence. How do we do that? I mean, in our business, yours and mine, how do we encourage reflection?
Okay, let's stop.
I trust that.
Well, it was time to type him, because how many times have we referred to the Mr. Rogers cardigan in all our ISFJ videos? Although here he's not wearing his cardigan, he's wearing a suit.
No, he's betrayed us.
Yes, he has.
I just feel like this guy got up one day. Maybe he had some kind of momentous life event that just made him get up one day and say, "You know what? This is my value. Or these are my values, and this is what I'm going to do." And it's like he's so pinpoint directed towards like spreading positivity in a way. He just wants to, I don't know, it's just very loving, isn't it? I mean, that's the best way to put it, I think.
Yeah, and isn't that the case with so many ISFJs that we've typed? That they have a clear-cut understanding fairly early on of what they want in life.
Right. It's very simple in some way, I think.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't complicated stuff he says, but it's very deeply moving, really.
Right, and I'm going to speak to that in a minute. So before we go there, I just want to reference back to the ISFJ finding what they want early in life. And I think so many of them seem to do that. And because of that, they have decades to dig in and share amazing expertise with the world.
Like, I think for us, we tend to be intuitive dominant types. We tend to be late bloomers and sort of jacks of all trades in some way. We have a lot of interests, a lot of hobbies, a lot of talents in some way, but we're just late.
Right.
And ISFJ is never late.
No, and I also feel like with us, it's not like we can't spend decades on a thing, but I feel like for us, there's so many other things out there that we want to explore that we then kind of move on to something else.
Yes.
But I think that the beauty of the ISFJ is the fact that they can find it early on. They're content in their choice. They dig down into it, and they explore every single possibility within that subject field.
Yes, and they never lose interest.
No.
Whereas I think for us, like, it's kind of like a video game. Like, I'll play a video game, and the start's really interesting for me. I come from nothing, when I'm actually winning the game, I find it kind of boring, and I feel like I've got everything I want out of it in some way. Like that doesn't happen for them. It's like they're just finding nuggets of things
constantly. I know.
Constantly
Right.
digging deeper.
Again, Mr. Rogers is a perfect example of this because he found his calling early in life and he really spoke to children, and he kind of branched off from that and really, like you said, it was that positivity, you know. I mean, so many people grew up watching Mr. Rogers. It was something that you look forward to when you got home from school, and you would just sit down, and it was kind of a time to sort of settle you down as a child, you know, like the world's swirling around, all these things are going on. He did exactly what he just said here about allowing a time for silence. He sort of slowed things down, like deliberately. Like even me, I felt like as my child's mind, it was slowed down.
Yeah, I mean, you've mentioned this in like the classroom. Basically, children, they have like one setting, and you have to like grab their attention,
Right.
and you have to slow them down and say, "This is what we're doing. This is the next 15 minutes, and then the next 15 minutes, we're going to be doing this." And you're always keeping it interesting because they're, you know, always curious.
Yes, they're always curious and they're always wanting to know what's next and what's going on, and little things catch their attention and sidetrack them. And so I would sing a lot of times, and just the very act of listening to a beautiful song would just settle them. And it's kind of exactly what Mr. Rogers did. If you watched his show, he would tell a story or do a little play or something, and it would just have this effect of settling you down. They do have him typed as INFP, and I can understand that because I do believe that many INFP males also have that calming presence.
Yes.
But if you listen to their language, it's quite different.
No, there's a depth there that is different. The perspective of an FI is more complicated in many ways.
I agree.
The perspective of an FE person is quite straightforward. Be kind to other people.
Allow time for silence.
Don't call people out for bad things they do. They're just very...
It's obvious things that we all need to be reminded of, but I don't want to say it lacks depth because it doesn't. It's good stuff.
More straightforward.
Yeah, like it's more straightforward.
He's come at it from one angle, which is, you know what, there's not enough nice in the world. And he's just very compassionate in that way. Even if we have differences, we should all get along. We should all be civil. It's kind of from that way. And I understand why they say INFP, because they say things like this, but they say it from a different kind of angle. They go the long way round in some way, like through all the dips, and you know, they know all the nuances because they're introverting on that feeling. Whereas this is like, I felt this thing and I didn't like it, so therefore I must be kind, and I'm going to be kind to everyone.
All right, let's keep listening and just pay attention to his language.
But first, don't forget to subscribe and like, because Mr. Rogers would be very upset. Right, 3, 2, 1, go.
This book will do some of that, but oh my, this is a noisy world.
Why? A lot of this is about self-esteem, believing in yourself, knowing you're special.
And knowing that you're unique. You know that when you think about it, there has never been another Charlie Rose in all of the history of humankind, and there never will be. And that's the same with every person you meet.
We all have a certain uniqueness.
Exactly.
Yeah. Why is it then you think that so many people come up short on self-esteem and on believing in themselves and having confidence to go out and take on uncharted waters?
Probably because of very early on in our lives that we weren't valued. You know, the greatest gift we can give anybody, any little child, is to help that child know that, you know, you're a part of our family, and you're you're a welcome part, and there are things that you can do to enhance our family.
All right, let's stop.
See it.
This is so much like my grandfather. I know I've spoken about him before. This is so much like George Foreman.
Yeah, it is, isn't it?
And what I was saying earlier, what we were saying earlier about slowing things down, this was my grandfather. Do you notice that Fred Rogers, he let that man, the interviewer, he let him finish his question completely. He deliberately, now I don't know if he thinks this or if he feels it, he slows moments down. My grandfather did the same thing. In conversation, he slowed everything down by virtue of him being a person who wasn't in a hurry. But I noticed it with Fred Rogers. I noticed it with George Foreman. I noticed it with my grandfather. I noticed it with a lot of the ISFJ males that we've typed. A lot of them. They
and
just
in that
have
slowing down, it's exactly like he says. It promotes reflection and thought.
Yes, there's a
and
thoroughness.
That's important because he's right. People do not think. Like too much today, people act very emotionally. You know,
Right.
It's this political side, we don't like that political side, and it's very kind of bitter and emotional and very childlike. But like that couldn't happen if people did this. Because they would think and they'd say, you know what, that political side, they're okay, they just have different priorities. That's okay. I see where they're coming from. That's what the ISFJ would say.
Right.
I understand why they would think that. I understand why they would feel that way. It's about valuing all the facets of people. Practical, emotional, and saying, you know, actually, you're very different from me. Because you're more emotionally based, maybe. And I'm more thinkering and practically based. That I still see where you're coming from, basically. That's, it's just compassion, really, I think.
What I was starting to say earlier, and I interrupted you. How ironic.
That's fine. I'm always interrupting you.
There is a thoroughness, and I think that is the SI and the FE. There is a thoroughness in everything they do. So we mentioned earlier the career, right? The dedication to their life's work that can span decades. There's a thoroughness to how they approach conversation. You can watch Dr. Ian McGilchrist. You can see it in him. You alluded to it earlier with the FE, just feeling it. And then knowing how to handle a conversation. It's like that FE is such an amazing tool in the ISFJ's toolbox because they know how to handle a conversation with someone. And then there's the thoroughness in it. Like we have all the time in the world to sit here and explore what we want to explore in it. And I think that's why, speaking for myself, I feel so calmed in their presence.
Yeah. It's everything as well, like the way they speak. They speak
Yes.
slower usually. Not all the time, but
No,
speak slower, and they're just very thoughtful. Like in both respects, right?
we talk a lot about, SI, and people talk about it being the attention to detail. But in this case, in the ISFJ male, I think we can see it here with Fred Rogers, how it's manifesting, as a thoroughness, attention to detail and conversation. I mean, he's kind of like thought it all through, right?
I mean, his thing really, his sort of deep tunnel of exploration is, how can I make the world a better place?
Mm-hmm.
And he's gone with it, just as Ian McGilchrist went with, how can I study the brain and blah, 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 blah.
Right.
I couldn't imagine Mr. Rogers disagreeing with anyone because he's got the thoughtfulness and the ears to listen and say, and be patient and let them say what they're saying and then understand where they're coming from. Like he would never say, well, oh no, it's not quite like that. He'd see their point and then he'd speak to it. Or
Yes.
he would speak from his own perspective. 3, 2, 1, go.
A picture of 2 little grandchildren.
These are your grandchildren?
Yes.
Oh, look at that. Yeah. How many?
Alexander and Douglas.
How many children do you have?
We have 2 sons.
Right.
And the elder son has these 2 boys.
Hmm. Why do you think Mr. Rogers' neighborhood, what does it achieve? What does it accomplish?
Oh, I hope that it's given a few more honest adults in the lives of the children who watch. Because I do think that that's a great gift. That if adults can show what they love in front of kids, there'll be some child who'll say, I'd like to be like that, or I'd like to do that. I remember Yo-Yo Ma being on our program. He's come to visit several times. Yeah. And there have been families who have written to us to say that their kids want to learn the cello.
Right, because they saw Yo-Yo Ma on the program?
Because they saw him love his work on the program. And there have been some basketball players and some sculptors. Oh, I remember in the nursery school where I worked as I was doing my master's work in child development. There was a man who would come every week to sculpt in front of the kids. The director said, I don't want you to teach sculpting. I just want you to do what you do and love it in front of the children. During that year, clay was never used more imaginatively before or after than during that time that he came. So a great gift
All right, let's stop.
of any adult to a child.
Yeah, he just sort of summed it up there, didn't he? You know, a lot of times if you let people talk enough, they say what we're trying to point out, you know, in 15 minutes of talking. But he said his thing on his show was that he tried to bring people in who showed children that they loved what they did, not to show them how, but to show them how they felt. That is FE in many ways. Because I think it's the same with me. I try to communicate how I feel about something. I think for Fred Rogers, he was trying to communicate a feeling through a show. He wanted to give a feeling. It's more than an experience even. Like we talk about people who want to give experience, right? They want to give you. We made a recent video with the ENFJ, how they want to give an experience. I think Fred Rogers wants to give you a feeling.
Yeah, it's like an atmosphere, isn't it? It's sort of like those ASMR things where like
right.
They create like a atmospheric energy of like calming or something.
Yeah, it's a feeling. And I did a similar thing as a child. I used to sing my sisters to sleep. I created a feeling. I don't know that I was giving them an experience as much as I was trying to create a feeling in them. And it's the same in the elementary classroom in teaching, trying to give the students a feeling. When I perform in music, I'm trying to give people a feeling. I want them to feel. That's really my objective in a lot of the things that I do in life. I want them to feel. And I think in this case, I have a lot in common with Mr. Rogers because he wants people, especially children, to feel. I want them to feel love for this thing. I want them to do something in life where they feel a love for it. They don't have to be the best at it, but they have to feel a love for it. It's kind of a very, I don't want to use the word primitive, but it is in a sense. You know, like we talk about, you've talked about FI.
Stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
That doesn't, I'm not trying to be offensive when I say
No,
that, but
it's
like,
not, because
it's
very
simplistic.
basic. It is very simplistic and very basic. And it's the same with ESFJ. They just want people to be happy. It's just very simple, you know? And I think that's kind of what FE does best. It doesn't get weighed down.
If that person did teach clay sculpting, it's almost like a pressure, because inwardly you're thinking, oh, did I get that? Did I miss that? Could I do that? Could I achieve this? Could I do that? And like they were saying, self-esteem, etc. Like there's a lot of this in the world. It's always like, you need to do your test. You got exams at the end of this year. You need to do that. You need to do X, Y, Z. Like it's a little bit like unkind in that way. Mm-hmm. Whereas this is like, you know what? Do what you like. What makes you happy. Doesn't matter if you're good. Go for it.
Yeah. And I think for all the, debate about FE and FI and things, I think this is where, FE excels in its simplicity. But FE in this way, in this man, Fred Rogers, this is why he was so successful in what he did. It was the simplicity of it. It was the basic message reinforced in everything he did, right? That thoroughness, that SI thoroughness. He reinforced that over and over and over again in every single thing he did.
It's a bit like propaganda, really, if you think about it. Right. Hands, space, face, whatever. What was that? I don't know if you had that, but your country needs you. It's very concise, it's very specific, very simple language. This is the message. It's very simple, everyone gets it. There's not even any words in it. Everyone can relate to this.
Pure, basic feeling. And that's what Fred Rogers excelled at. To support our project, please comment, like, and subscribe. We want to encourage a dialogue in the comments, so substantiated disagreement is welcome. Check out the playlist for this type and our recommended video below. If there's someone you want us to type, please leave a comment for us. Or you can look into our fast track system to find out how you can get your favorite people typed sooner.